It began as a small village of shepherds on 7 hills. It ended as an empire that ruled 60 million people across 3 continents. This is the rise and fall of Rome. According to legend, Rome was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, who killed his twin brother Remus in a dispute over where to build the city. For centuries, Rome was ruled by kings. In 509 BC, the Romans overthrew their last king and founded a republic, governed by elected officials and a senate. Power, they decided, would never again rest with one man alone. Over the next 2 centuries, Rome fought off rival tribes and rival cities across Italy, slowly uniting the entire peninsula under its control through conquest and alliance alike. Then came Carthage. Across 3 brutal wars, Rome and Carthage fought for control of the Mediterranean, a struggle that nearly ended Rome when the general Hannibal invaded Italy itself. Hannibal crossed the Alps with war elephants and crushed Roman armies again and again. But Rome refused to surrender and eventually turned the tables, destroying Carthage completely in 146 BC. With Carthage gone, Rome became the dominant power of the Mediterranean world, absorbing Greece, Spain, and North Africa into a growing web of provinces. But success brought new problems. Wealth flooded into Rome unevenly, small farmers were pushed off their land, and the gap between rich and poor tore at the fabric of the Republic. Reformers like the Gracchi brothers tried to redistribute land to the poor. Both were murdered by the Senate's allies. Political violence, once unthinkable, had entered Roman life. In the chaos, ambitious generals built private armies loyal to themselves rather than the state. Men like Marius and Sulla marched on Rome itself, something no Roman had ever dared before. Out of this turmoil rose Julius Caesar, a brilliant general who conquered Gaul and made himself immensely popular with the Roman people and dangerously powerful in the eyes of the Senate. In 49 BC, ordered to disband his army, Caesar instead crossed the Rubicon River with his legions. Civil war followed, and Caesar emerged as the undisputed master of Rome. Fearing he would become a king, a group of senators assassinated Caesar on the Ides of March, 44 BC. They hoped to save the Republic. Instead, they destroyed it. Caesar's death triggered another round of civil war, this time between his adopted heir Octavian and his former ally Mark Antony, who had allied himself with Cleopatra of Egypt. At the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, Octavian's fleet crushed the forces of Antony and Cleopatra. Both later took their own lives. Octavian stood alone at the top of the Roman world.
In 27 BC, Octavian took the name Augustus and became Rome's first emperor, though he carefully preserved the appearance of the old republic. The age of the Roman Empire had begun. What followed was the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of relative peace and stability. Roads, aqueducts, and cities spread across the empire, from Britain to the Euphrates. Roman engineers built roads that still exist today, aqueducts that carried water for miles, and monuments like the Colosseum, where tens of thousands gathered for spectacle and games. Not every emperor ruled wisely. Caligula and Nero became infamous for cruelty and excess. Yet the empire's institutions were strong enough to survive even its worst rulers. The 2nd century brought a string of capable rulers, including Trajan, under whom the empire reached its greatest territorial extent, and Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor. But by the 3rd century, cracks were showing. Plague, economic collapse, and civil war shattered the empire's stability. In just 50 years, Rome saw more than 20 different emperors. The Emperor Diocletian tried to stabilize the empire by splitting it into 4 administrative regions, each with its own ruler, an arrangement known as the Tetrarchy. In 312 AD, Constantine won control of the empire and, in a historic shift, legalized and embraced Christianity, a faith that had been persecuted by Rome for centuries. Constantine founded a new capital in the east, Constantinople, shifting the empire's center of gravity away from an increasingly troubled Rome. In 395 AD, the empire formally split into two halves, Western and Eastern, each with its own emperor. The Western Empire, based in Rome, was the weaker and more vulnerable of the two. Beyond the frontiers, migrating peoples pushed westward, driven in part by the arrival of the Huns from the steppes of Asia. Goths, Vandals, and others crossed into Roman territory. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Visigoth forces under Alaric sacked the city of Rome itself, the first time in 8 centuries an enemy had breached its walls. Over the following decades, the Western Empire lost province after province. Britain, Spain, and North Africa slipped from Roman control, carved up by new barbarian kingdoms. Attila the Hun led devastating raids across the empire's territory, and though he was eventually turned back, the Western Empire's power to defend itself was fading fast. In 476 AD, the Germanic general Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, a teenager named Romulus Augustulus. No new emperor took his place in the West. Rome had fallen. But the story did not end there. In the East, the Roman Empire endured, evolving into what historians call the Byzantine Empire, with its capital at Constantinople. The Byzantines saw themselves not as something new, but as Romans still, preserving Roman law, Roman government, and Roman identity for another 1,000 years. Under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, Byzantine armies briefly reconquered Italy and North Africa, and his codification of Roman law shaped legal systems for centuries to come. The Eastern Empire finally fell in 1453, when Ottoman forces captured Constantinople. Nearly 2,000 years after Romulus, the last Roman state was gone. Rome's legacy far outlived its armies. Its language became the root of Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. Its law shaped legal systems across Europe and the world. Roman roads still lie beneath modern highways. Roman architecture inspired capitals and courthouses on every continent. Even our calendar and our alphabet trace back to Rome. From 7 hills to a fallen empire spanning 1,000 years, Rome's rise and fall remains one of history's greatest stories, a warning and an inspiration, still echoing today.